Alrighty, welcome back to Doom 3, and this is the final part of the Doom 3 commentary with me, Skully the Metalhead. Yeah, the ending of this actually kind of snuck up on me. I honestly didn't expect Doom 3 to end so suddenly. I thought there would have been at least one more part, but man, I can't really come to terms with how quickly this commentary is ending, because I've just had so much fun doing this game, and now it's over and I feel without purpose, although that purpose could be extended slightly given the fact that there's two Hell Knights coming in the end. Ooh! Jesus Christ. Okay, that's enough of you, buddy. You're gonna get a chain gun to the face. Oh, and Archviles to boot, I mean, fucking hell. That's what I call an onslaught of enemies. But a BFG shall quench your thirst of all its BFG-ness. Yeah. End of days, end of parts. This will probably be the last we'll be seeing of the UIC. What was the point of that, you fucking moron? Yeah, last we'll be seeing of the industrial setting for those of you who dislike it. And soon we will be transcending over to the ancient Martian civilization. A majority of what this part is basically going to consist of is mostly the last bit of the caverns. We'll see the ancient Martian civilization. Then we'll be getting to the final boss. Will it be Betruger, or perhaps something more? We'll have to wait and see. But for a good chunk of, this, it's mostly just going to be a lot of fighting and a lot of, mostly just a lot of general stuff that you've seen time and time again, and stuff that I'll have to kind of, I guess I'm kind of going to have to scarper it in terms of commentary, just so I can at the very least deliver some kind of intriguing tangent. But I've kind of expunged a lot of my tangents already. So I do kind of fret for how I'm going to fare in this part, because there's very little to talk about, really, since I've kind of expunged everything about hell, angels, the ancient Martian civilization, even some of the technical aspects, really. I suppose there is some things, because I was recently trawling the Doom 3 wiki again, and one interesting thing to note about the Doom 3 novelizations, because there were novelizations, is that there were some key differences in the way in which they wrote their characters. Like, I mean, for one big example is with Councillor Elliot Swan, who we saw a little bit before we came down to this place, is that he was apparently written in the novelization to be a little bit more of a cowardly character than he was in Doom 3, which is quite strange, because in Doom 3 he seemed to be pretty on the level despite his circumstances. But outside of that, I don't think many other characters were really written without any kind of consent. Well, I guess to pass the time, and again, even though we already do know this about Dr. Betruger himself, one thing I think I kind of lamented to mention beforehand is really his character before, Hell and everything took over. Because again, we know by this point that he was one of the scientists who entered the teleporter on his own, as we learned all the way back in the early part of Delta Labs. And I'd have to wonder what his personality before his possession or, demonic transformation was. Because, again, we never really see what happens as a result of, the teleportation. Because a lot of people on the UIC base claimed that he was acting strangely. But from the looks of the guy, he seemed to be the kind of person, and again, this might be by his Anthony Hopkins-like appearance, but I don't know, he doesn't seem like the kind of guy who'd seem particularly out of character for him to really, seem like a bit of a darker character. But I don't know, I mean, this is why I think that a little bit more expansive materials, and I think another thing that Doom 3 didn't necessarily do was well, again, I think it did excuse me, let me start again. I think it did characterization decently, although I feel that there was a lot more connectivity I think they honestly should have done, just to show, the transformation of what was happening. Because again, we see it among a lot of the additional staff and scientists across the UAC base, and again, that's some pretty fantastic world building. But I think in an ironic sense, the place where Doom 3 honestly does kind of fail is giving you a sense of connection to the characters who, you interact with directly, like Councillor Swan, Jack Campbell, and Sergeant Kelly and Dr. Betruger. Because, I mean, the Doom guy, understandable, he's the main character, he feels what we feel and all that kind of stuff, but I feel as if for characters like, Kelly, Betruger, and I suppose Councillor Swan and his bodyguard Campbell, I feel as if that the game probably should have done a little bit more on their part, just to show us that these are people also experiencing through hell. Because I don't want to say they feel really one-note, but I think they kind of played it a little bit too subtly for my taste. Which again is weird, because I'm usually all about subtlety and just trying to have those core character interactions a little bit more dour. And I guess it does make sense for some characters to be a little bit more, you know, on the whole subtle about their emotions, like, I mean, especially for the Marines like Sergeant Kelly and Campbell and Doom Guy, since, you know, they're trained to be soldiers who obey orders without question. But I suppose even for Betruger, I mean, the most we get out of him is brouhaha. Like, I mean, I think there is a little bit more potential for expanding Betruger's personality outside of I am evil. Because, I mean, there would have had to have been some kind of, you know, innate curiosity out of, you know, his love of science to, you know, go through the teleporter himself and to see, you know, the dark space in which Hell inhabits. I mean, there's just something that I feel should have been done, or at the very least to give him a little bit more of a core motivation to see what exactly this alternate dimension is, because, I mean, if he didn't go through the teleporter in the first place back when the other team did, as we learned throughout the Hell portion, at the very least I think it should have been made a little bit more clear about how Betruger was transfixed by the possibilities that his teleportation experiments had heralded in terms of, you know, transporting him over to Hell, or the mysteries that lay beyond it. Because, I mean, I think if he didn't go the first time, then he at the very least would have had some kind of prior knowledge about how there was demons, or a lot of people tending to hallucinate about some form of demon. You know, those floating egg things kind of remind me of precursor orbs, or actually, now that I think about it, it does kind of remind me of the precursor technology from Jak and Daxter, the Precursor Legacy. I don't know. But either way, I'm just kind of hit the microphone there, but in terms of technology, I think I'm really interested to see a lot more of what the Martian civilization actually had, because, I mean, we know that they had advanced technology, but we don't really see it that often. I mean, I guess you could say to some degree that we see the Soul Cube, and especially if you go on by Resurrection of Evil, like the artifacts that the soldier gets in that expansion, but I don't know, I'm just really interested to see a lot more of their civilization, and I think seeing things like this, like whatever the hell those egg-like capsules are, I think that'd just be one step beyond and something a little bit more fantastic. But we have a video disc coming up, and I shall remain silent and have a drink of the Pepsi, and you can enjoy this.
This is Dr. Pierce Rogers, lead archaeologist.
Setting new standards in both archaeological discovery and analysis, the UAC is proud to showcase the latest findings on 4 unique and fascinating artifacts. These tablets were originally discovered in the dig site under what has become known as Site 3. Subsequent examination of the surrounding area and carbon dating of the tablets brought UAC researchers to the conclusion that the tablets belonged to a civilization that existed millennia ago and were placed in a holy burial ground of some sort. Utilizing the best minds in linguistics and UAC proprietary pattern recognition software, the tablets were exhaustively examined. What we found was fantastic. The first tablet provided us with a wealth of scientific data, specifically detailing the mathematical concepts behind teleportation. UAC researchers use this information as the cornerstone for building the Delta teleportation devices. The second and third tablets illustrate an epic story, a story of war, and how, faced with impossible odds, the ultimate sacrifice of an entire race to achieve victory. The fourth tablet details how the essence of each individual was captured and placed in the artifact we now refer to as the Soul Cube. This device was wielded by their mightiest warrior, and with it he banished the invading horde forever. Our researchers are still analyzing a recently found hidden section of the fourth stone and some related fragments. It goes into detail on the invading force and indicates the remaining survivors may have teleported somewhere. Where we do not know, although it seems to reference a map we have yet to locate. To date, there remains no evidence of any type of invasion at any of the sites. Our assumption is that time has removed all but what we now see.
So, yeah, that was pretty much referring to what I was talking about in the last part, about how the ancient Martian civilization eventually descended itself onto Earth and thus became the human race that we know today, and also how a bit of their technology worked. I mean, especially with the Soul Cube, and how, in many ways, you know, they used their souls to vanquish the demons, and to those who survived, they began again on Earth, which part of me does wonder how exactly the ancient Martian civilization, or at the very least, humanity's ancestors, lost their technological prowess. I suppose, if you want to read into the subtext, it could be because that they never wanted anything like hell and the demons to ever happen to them again, and thus abandoned their technology and became essentially the modern primitives that we were back in the prehistoric era. But I suppose there is a lot of interesting ground to cover as far as that is concerned. But again, I think it is interesting to see it from here. But again, as I kept on mentioning, it's why I honestly do think that we needed more expansive material for Doom 3. I mean, or at the very least, possibly even a side story or sequel or something going through the line of the ancient Martian civilization and how I mean, even if you wanted to subscribe to the whole idea that Doomguy is a warrior that's ascended throughout time and space, you know, if you really wanted to follow that line of theory or whatever, then I think following through Doom 3's a little bit of an analogy about how the ancient Martian civilization had a warrior who, whether descended by genetic code or by some kind of space-time disturbance, you know, you could instead play as the warrior who instead of you using guns or anything, wields the Soul Cube and goes through hell and high water just to save his civilization, and then ultimately set up everything that we see in Doom 3, and, you know, present it to us in video game form, which again, even though I don't particularly subscribe to the whole fact that, you know, Doomguy is some special chosen one or anything, I do think it will be a nice game to tie, you know, the entire series together, even if I don't fully agree with the whole idea of it. I don't know, I mean, I think it'd at least make for an interesting game, because, I mean, while I do really want to play Doom 2016, I do enjoy it for returning the series to its roots, I honestly do think that there is a lot of ground you can cover, and, you know, or at the very least in terms of putting an interesting spin on, you know, the Doom game series. And look, it's the Vagary! Back again, apparently. Yeah, the Vagary isn't really too big of a threat, especially if you have, you know, Samantha with you. Although, then again, it does kind of explain the reappearance of the Trites, which I guess they do eventually grow up into a Vagary-like creature. But at the same time, however, I think it is something that probably could have been a bit better explained. Anyway, collect some ammo, and look at this! A strange door that opens to time. And this is pretty much the end of the cavern section. The next point coming up next is, well, the final boss. And I think the part where it pretty much confirms that we are descending to... I wouldn't really say hell, because I'm pretty sure hell is still in an alternate dimension. Although, we are getting somewhere quite close. Anyway, I'll probably just have a drink of the Pepsi in a little bit, and I will meet you back when we tackle the final part of the Doom 3 commentary. Even though this is the final part, but whatever. The final portion of this part, I should say. Alrighty, and welcome... Well, I don't really need to welcome you back, because I've only been gone for a few seconds, after a good swig of the Pepsi. Anyway, this is it, everybody. Stock up on ammunition and weapons, and, well, we're going off to fight the demons, to put an end to this madness once and for all. Yeah, this is pretty much, well, again, as you can tell by the massive ammo stockpile, this is pretty much the place where you stock up and get ready to fight the evil. Don't really have much more... Well, don't really have much more to talk about anyway, but I guess, in terms of any other tangents, or at least the few remaining ones that I have left, because there is a couple more things that I want to talk about, but there is very little for me to talk about without going into some, you know, final thoughts, closing up kind of thing. And the last, well, little tangent I can give you for now is really, will I ever do the Resurrection of Evil and the Lost Mission? And that is something that I'll probably do somewhere down the line, possibly in between games if I ever end up deciding what I'm going to do next. But for the time being, I think Doom 3 has pretty much run its course. I think people are probably tired of seeing this game up and up everywhere, so I'll do Resurrection of Evil and the Lost Mission at some stage, just probably a little bit later in the timeline. Possibly throughout, you know, 2018 or 2019. We'll see how things go. Anyway, as we can see here, it appears that this might be the origin of some Egyptian traditions. I mean, we see a sarcophagus there. Yeah, this is pretty much the video disc that we picked up earlier. And also a place where you can get a little bit better of a look at the tablets that we saw back in Site 3. And we see the Soul Cube. I don't really have much more to add to that. Whoa! Okay, that's a little bit ominous. But yeah, this is when we start seeing a little bit more of a hellish design. Which actually... it does kind of remind me of the Sith tombs on Korriban, actually, from Knights of the Old Republic. Yeah, this is well... I think this is honestly what a lot of Doom fans kind of expected to see when they were looking at Doom 3, a little bit more of a hellish design to it, which again, like seeing things like that, like with the upside down cross and the person hanging off it with the body, I think that's kind of what people wanted a little bit more of. I don't know, because it feels reminiscent of the first Doom game, albeit with a little bit more of a drab colour scheme, but then again, I don't know, I kind of like the way this game looks. Actually, there is a secret coming up next that we will be coming across pretty soon. Again, it's nothing major, but it is something that I do think was a pretty cool Easter egg, slash a nice way of seeing that the developers put themselves in the game. We're looking for mysteries coming around the place. Well, since we're nowhere near it at this point, there is one other Easter egg that I think I can bring up, and I'm not sure whether or not it was added to the expansion of Doom 3, or if it was just in the main game itself, but there is actually a Rage logo, you know, the id Software game, hidden somewhere in the Hell portion, I believe. I think it might be one of the expansions of Doom 3, but it is in there, and I have found it, which I believe earns you a trophy, or achievement, or whatever's your poison, in this day and age of video games. But finding this secret in particular is also a little bit difficult, because it's near the end, but it's nowhere near as close as you think it might be. Like, I mean, it can quite easily elude you if you're not actively searching for it. And what is this? It is the id Software logo? We're off to do some Indiana Jones style shit right here. We have found the secret. And yeah, what we find here is id Software's PDA. Apparently they exist over a century into the future. And basically what we have in here is basically them saying, you know, thanks for Doom 3, this game is excellent, and big special thanks to their wives, girlfriends, children, boyfriends, all that kind of stuff, you know. Which again, is pretty sweet. I don't know, maybe I'm just a bit of a fucking sap who gets all in all about my family slash homies. Okay, that's enough Insane Clown Posse references for one day, but I'm going to skip a good chunk of this because I don't think it would make for very interesting visuals, and I think id Software probably gets enough thanks as they do, since most of them probably don't even work there anymore. Or at the very least since Bethesda came in and picked them out. But in any case, we're about to enter the final boss fight, and we'll have one last save of the game, and we are in for pure, unadulterated hell. Yes, you couldn't have a Doom game without the Cyber Demon. And holy fuck, this is probably my favourite Cyber Demon design out of the entire series. I mean, I love its height, I just love the fleshy cybernetic design in this Jesus man, this beast looks fucking sick. But again, honestly, adding to that, the Cyber Demon is invincible. You can't kill it with conventional weapons, you have to destroy the demons and power up the Soul Cube. Then you simply fire the Soul Cube at it and it does some significant damage. Again, you're probably wondering, wait a minute, where's Dr. Betruger? What's going to happen? That'll be explained in a little bit, but for the time being, we just have to focus on keeping ourselves alive and battling the Cyber Demon. A lot of people actually have complained about this boss and how, you know, it's a little bit of a cop-out that you have to use the Soul Cube rather than, you know, your wits and brains and weapons to survive, but again, honestly, in terms of being a climax, I feel that it is kind of deserved, because again, as the Soul Cube had already stated, I mean, the Cyber Demon is Hell's mightiest warrior. You know, and again, it's something that literally cannot be beaten, but the only way that the Martian civilization even survived in the first place was purely because of the Soul Cube's power, which, again, does kind of speak volumes about the ancient Martian civilization and why the demons wanted them dead, but honestly, especially in terms of giving the Soul Cube importance, I feel that or at least in terms of a story setting, it does earn its keep. Though I can see where a lot of people are coming from in terms of, you know, pure skill and challenge and all that kind of stuff. However, while we're on that note though, I just love this final boss fight, and especially the cutscene coming up. Won't be any talking, of course, but again, I'll just let you sit and watch, and let's use the final Soul Cube.
Recon Zulu, this is Echo 1. Give me a visual status.
Echo 1, this is Recon Zulu. We've got massive damage all over the base. This place looks like hell. I've got life signs on the bioscanner. Eyes sharp. Echo 1, we've got a survivor, a Marine. Corporal, you hear me? You alright? Can you hear me? Echo 1, this is Recon Zulu. Prepare for medevac.
Copy that. Have you located Counselor Swan?
Yes, sir. He's dead.
Roger, Recon 1. What about Dr. Betruger?
He's nowhere to be found, sir.
That, my friends, was Doom 3, the Big Friendly Giant Edition, and what you're currently seeing is the credits of the original Doom 3 because I think they look a little bit cooler than the BFG editions. Now, I know what you're probably thinking, the fact that we didn't kill off Dr. Betruger is a little bit of a cliffhanger slash sloppy closure, and I honestly can agree with that line of statement. I mean, I think it is kind of sloppy, and the fact that it's resolved in, you know, Resurrection of Evil I feel is kind of unfitting. But that being said though, it doesn't really hinder my enjoyment of the game, since, I mean, especially with the BFG edition of all things, since it does come with Resurrection of Evil and the Lost Mission. But at the same time though, I mean, I think they probably could have put it in the game in and of itself just so, you know, we could have our final boss fight with Betruger and put an end to this. But yeah, Doom 3. I plan to review this, probably not this year or even next year, since I have a lot of games that I want to get to beforehand, but that being said, I love this game. I've stated this time and time again, but I mean, even despite how Doom 3 is with a lot of the fanbase, I just love how this game plays, man. Like, I mean, it might be a radical departure from the run-and-gun heavy metal gameplay of Doom 1 and 2, but holy fuck does this game pack a fantastic atmosphere. Again, I would have liked a bit more of a heavy metal soundtrack, but, you know, the ambience, the music, the general look of the game, to me, is just incredible. Again, I've rambled all throughout this commentary, but there's something about this game that just feels so 2004, and something about it that just feels so rich in atmosphere. And again, like, I mean, we've seen it time and time again. I mean, we've seen, you know, we've seen the PDA logs, we've seen, you know, the general ambience settle in. Doom 3, as a game, to me, in terms of its story content, it feels alive. But not only that, but it integrates itself with the gameplay just so well, that I find myself so lost in this game's plot and storyline that I just feel so immersed. And again, in a video game, that's what I'm ultimately looking for. A game that immerses me into the atmosphere and makes me feel as if I'm looking at this world as a living, breathing world, rather than just something that I'm just running through for the sake of playing a video game. that's honestly why I feel that Doom 3 is fantastic. And honestly, if you haven't played Doom 3, or if you're a bigger fan of the classic Doom games, then I can see why you might have some contempt for this game, but again, if you're looking for a game that packs a whole lot of atmosphere, or at the very least a rich world in which you can run around in despite the, tightly constrained locales of the UAC base in Hell, I recommend you pick up this game. It is absolutely incredible. But again, take my hyperbolic, phrasing for what it is. But, yeah. Now, I haven't really decided what kind of game I'm doing next. I've got a lot of ideas swimming in my head, but for the time being anyway, nothing's really concrete. My mind is settling on 2 games in particular though, one of which is a horror game, Forbidden Siren, which I've been given quite a few playthroughs recently of, and Gex 2, or Gex 3D, Enter the Gecko, I should say. 2 wildly different games, but 2 that I've been meaning to tackle for some time now. Again, I feel as if we've stuck with the horror a little bit too much, and think it's time to return to my platformery roots, especially since I do plan to review Gex 3D Enter the Gecko later this year. I suppose if there is anything I could say about this commentary and how it panned out, at the start, very rambly, it didn't really improve that much, although I think towards the final parts, especially as I began to incorporate a little bit more tangents and all that kind of stuff into the game, I think the commentary did flow a hell of a lot better, and I think by the end of it, it did shape out to equal that of the Matrix Path of Neo for me, which I'm very proud of myself for, because I'm improving my speech ability, and I'm learning how to speak English. But anyway, with all that said, I'm Skully, keep it new metal, and next time, we'll move on to the next game with Skullfire Comms. Catch you later, guys.